whatever needs to be to get this right. So I think cash flow is pretty important. It is, I think the most important financial tool that's available to us if we're involved in finances for Young Life. So I do get questions, and one caveat right off the top: people that help with finances in Young Life range from the whole gamut to people who balance maybe a checking account to those who are MBAs. So there's a whole breadth of knowledge. So I'll say a few things that it might, if I'm saying something you don't understand, stop me. And if I say something too simple, well, tough. That's the way it's going to be, I guess. So any questions, just feel free to ask. Just why cash flow? If you're in finance at all, you've heard about a balance sheet or an income statement and so on. Why cash flow? I'll just say briefly, we don't have a balance sheet because a balance sheet really shows what you owe or what you own. And in Young Life, our Young Life areas, we don't own anything. It's just a cash account in Colorado. So there's no need for a balance sheet. I've been asked that once in a while, that why don't we do a balance sheet? So that's why. We don't own anything. Why not an income statement? That's kind of the statement everybody, if you're involved with finance at all, you like an income statement or a revenue and expense statement, whatever you want to call it. There is one available, and I'll show you in a little bit where that is available to you. The way the income statement is set up, though, it compares your revenues and your expenses against last year, against budget. It just does that. It doesn't tell you how much cash you have on hand. Now, you could, if you want to massage it a bit, you could tweak it to make it work, but they've set the cash flow tool up to accommodate that much better. So while the income statement is important, at the end of the day, you have to, you want to make more money than you spent. So it is an important tool, but for our reporting as far as committees and so on, I think the cash flow is the report to look at. Does that kind of make sense? On the cash flow, when you look at it, and we'll look at it in a little bit. Well, another reason the income statement, okay, here we go. Another reason the income statement is a little misleading at times is because expenses, are spread throughout the year, salaries and so on, evenly every year. And revenues often, if you have a major fundraiser or something, they're so inconsistent. It's a one-time event. So just looking at an income statement at any point in time, you could have a loss every month, and then all of a sudden you have the big fundraising event, and it doesn't really, again, at the end of the year it's important, but month by month it's sort of limited in its importance. So that's why we go to the cash flow. A couple more things I'll just say about the cash flow. For some, it's too complicated. For some, it's not complicated enough. If your area has multiple events or multiple staff, there sometimes is additional analysis required, separate tracking and so on. We can talk about that later, but it is somewhat limited in giving the amount of detail. Now you can manually go in here and change some details, but it is a little limited. I have some ideas to talk to you about if you want to get a little more complex on this. The cash flow measures things on a monthly basis. Now, personally, when you manage your personal cash, you have to make sure every day there's enough cash in there or you're overdrawn. On a daily basis, the service center will cover us. So if you're in the hole for 2 or 3 days during the month, not to worry, but it's measured on a monthly basis. So at the end of the month, you need to have positive cash. So that's what this thing does. It measures things on a monthly basis. And I will also say, if you've been involved with finances in the past or are just getting on, you either have been or you will be asked to update your cash flow a lot. And there's some real reasons for that. So let's start by just looking at this thing. And Lily's going to drive this thing. So am I driving? Oh, perfect. Okay. So right at the top here, I'm just going to kind of navigate through this thing a little bit and show you. You can see the cash flow on the top left there. Then you can go to a campership. The next one over is a campership. That basically is the cash flow, but as it pertains to campership. Then you go to cash advances. I'm not even going to go in there. I don't even know. I never go in there. It doesn't do a lot for it. It doesn't tell you a lot. I don't think you need to go in there. And I talked before about the revenue and expenses report, the income statement, whatever you want to call it, the profit and loss. That's this report, this fourth one here. That's that one. Then I'll also go, yes.
Stop you for a second. I think, is everybody seeing him move around?
I'm not seeing the reports he's talking about pointing to.
Okay. So Ken, I'm going to let your mouse drive, but
Okay.
when you're on the screen, I'm wondering, do you have it open locally as well?
I can. Does that help?
No, I'm just wondering because it seemed like you were aware, had thought you were driving, but I didn't see any movement. So
Okay. I just got my mouse. Okay, I just got my mouse. Okay. Do you want to drive?
well, I'm gonna give control over to you, and it's saying waiting for Ken Willms to control your screen. So, do you have something up on front of your screen that allows you to accept that?
Well, what would I be looking for? You can control Lily's screen. Oh, okay.
There you go.
Am I driving now?
It still says waiting. Do you have to click on something?
I don't know. I don't see anything to click on.
I see him. You're moving the arrow on like Word right now.
So Ken is?
Yeah, oh, I see someone. The arrow is moving around.
Yeah, that's me. Oh, Ken. Are you moving? That's you, Ken.
Okay, all right. Okay. So the cash flow is this top left one here. Do you see that I'm pointing around? I'm circling that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the campership, you can see there's not a lot in there, but that kind of does the cash flow for campership, which is separate. Cash advances, I won't go in there. Revenue and expense, this is your, and again, it's in big fonts and so on, but this is your income statement. So you can see right here, month is your monthly amount, the monthly budget, your difference, year-to-date budget, how much you've spent, how much you have left, and then if you go way over to the right here, it's what you did last year. So that's your income statement. Okay, so I'm gonna back out of that and go back to cash flow. Then what you've got right here, this box right here, it says actuals and projected. That means the way it's set up, if you look over here in December, that you can see December actual. So past results for a closed month, like all the way through February, it will all say actual. And that's all you see. You see a January actual, February actual. And then if you scroll over, you see March projected. So that's because March has not closed yet. March actual. So this is what is actually in this account right today for March. That's what was projected right there. So you have this projected actual for the month, the current month. And then all the future months, again, April, May, they're all show projected. Okay, so future stuff is projected. So this box right here, if you want to see every month with an actual and projected, you can see how it changes. There's February now. Before we just saw February actual, but now you can see February projected and February actual. Yeah, maybe you like that, maybe you don't. I think that just clutters things up too much, but it's available. Or you can do actuals only, so you would not see any projected. So now you don't, all these future months are just zeros. So I think don't bother going there. And projected only, if you just want to see projections and no actuals, you could do that. But I think, in my opinion, it's the first one you want to have. Then the next one, I think you just leave it at full fiscal year. I have never even played with these other ones. I guess you could just look at 1 month at a time or a previous month. Leave it at full fiscal. This is the current year, 2017, 2018. It says current year. But you can go back and look at any prior year you want, 2013, 14, 14, 15. If you want to see past history, you can go see that. There's nothing in these future years. They just put them in here. But so you can see a history of where you've been. And then this show over under, it'll just color a few things. If you did better than your projections for some numbers for the month, it'll show green. If you did worse than you projected, it'll be a red. I don't even bother with it. So,
Hey Ken, can you hear me?
yes.
Do these things update in real time, or do we have to wait till the end of the month to get the data?
Nope. They'll update real time. In fact, we'll play with a few numbers here after a bit.
Okay, so that includes all expenses will update in real time, and all income will also update in real time.
As soon as it's posted in Colorado.
Okay,
So
but that happens multiple times a month, not just at the end.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good question. So what happens is, so here's your whole, on the left side is all your revenues and expense accounts. And when I say some people think it's too complicated, let's just look at December right here. You see this 18,920, and then you see 18,920 again there, and then 18,804 and 18,804. You got four numbers that all kind of mean the same thing. And the way this works, if you start from this row here all the way up, these are all your revenues. And you can see every time there's an indent, all these numbers right here from contributions down to this one, they're indented. Those numbers then will all roll up into this contribution number. So 18,920 rolls up into that 18,920. You see that? Then you got this next set of indented numbers. So now you got from contributions and all of these other ones here, they roll up into this 18,804. So that's where you get the credit card processing fee netted again, okay? And so you got that number there, and then everything rolls up into operating revenue. So for an area that has one line item, it looks way too complicated. But if you have numbers in monthly donors and in banquet and in RTD contributions, then it becomes more meaningful. So just understand what's happening here. It's just look at the roll-up numbers, and I may not be explaining that very well, but these aren't a lot of, the top line revenue number is 18,804. It just so happens nothing else came from transfers, internal credits, and some of these, you got all these zeros here. That's why that number is the same, but that isn't always the case. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense. When you go down to operating expenses, you can see here, here's all your indented numbers for salaries, other comp, and so on. All these numbers starting at 3512 down to pension, they roll up into this 5970, okay? Then if you have, if you had what they call RTD salaries, then, and this area does not have that, but they would also combine with this compensation to add into that compensation. So sometimes those numbers are a little different. And then operating expenses here, 1862 is the sum of the combination of all these things down here. So just understand that all these things kind of roll up into a heading, and then all those headings roll up into the total operating expenses.
And Ken,
and then,
just a little note, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the top left of this spreadsheet, that allows us to collapse some of those so you can see the roll-up totals without seeing the detail.
Okay.
And then 2.
That may see, yeah, you can see. So now I'm hitting, now I'm going to hit the 1. That's all you get right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think as you're updating this thing, my opinion only, you know, you do what works for you. I think I like to have it all open, so I don't miss anything. But that's everybody's personal preference. But you see this number right here, that's 10,971. At the end of the day, if I go back to this one, just the 18,804 and the 7,833, I get that 10,971. So however you look at it, these four numbers at the bottom, or maybe not the transfers account so much, but this one, and this one are the most important things on this thing. I'll open it back up here. Now, am I going too fast? I know I talk awful fast, but
no, it's fine.
you
Just
tell
one
me.
question. Are the sub-account level 4, are we consistent across all of our locations, or is it, are we allowed to sort of freelance the sub-account names? We do
No,
that.
all the names are the same. Now you can
Right.
go
Okay.
in and, yeah, basically the same. You can go in and add some lines and call it what you want, but all these headings are the same.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
If you have a special bocce ball event, you can create a new event, or if you have a certain couple people on staff that you want to track the contributions from that person. And I know for Ryan, that might be helpful. We have a few different staff people that are raising money. You can make lines for that, and some areas do that.
Jeff, you got the flyer to the bocce ball event then?
Yeah,
I won the T-shirt.
All right, nice.
That's a good question. If you hit these pluses, if I hit that plus, I can add a new line and I can call it what I want.
Okay.
But otherwise, if these things are pre-populated, that's what they are.
Ken, so I might be asking the advanced question you get to down the line, so it's pushing me off if you're going to answer it later. But how does money get assigned to these individual groupings, if that makes sense?
Okay. That's a great question. Okay, on the expense side, as far as compensation, I have no access to compensation. So I think that all flows through the region. I think Lily or the admin office will tell Colorado, hey, here's what the salaries are. And they got those things coded. So I'm not sure how that part works. For these other operating expenses, when you spend something on your P card system, I believe, and I don't do the P cards myself, but I believe you have to enter the expense account. So you will enter, for example, if it's for your office, it's telephone expense, you're going to have to enter 5810. Program 6210. So if you enter the wrong account, the code, then that's where I like to always review the trial balance at the end of every month. Does everything get put in the right box? Did I just mess up when I had a phone expense and I put it into a 6440 here golf or something like that? So they will enter it as you code it.
Okay, then rookie question here again. Each area is responsible for assigning those P codes based on the credit card statement?
Correct.
Okay.
Lily, do you have another answer to that?
That is correct. It'll post as a total number in what they call an unassigned or unsubmitted P card expense, right down at that bot, into the 8640 until the person submits their report. Once they submit it with all the expense accounts identified, then it will post to the proper account.
Perfect. That works for me.
Awesome.
Okay. So the expense sides are pretty good. Now, the revenue side, and I'll just jump to that part right now. So you've got right up here, monthly donors, one-time gifts, other gifts, banquet, golf, anything where a donor is going to get a receipt for, that's called contributions. So any contribution, if you pay for a golf tournament, you pay the green fees, that part of that's going to go to non-cash contributions because that's non-receivable. But the receivable part will go to this event golf here. However, until you can see for this area, all these numbers are in this other gifts. So all contributions by default go to that line item. So here's where the cash flow is a little bit short, in my opinion, is if you are tracking multiple events, or let's just say monthly donors. See, you got monthly donors and banquet donors. Now, I'm in Yakima, and here's how I like to do it, and everybody does it different. But I want to track banquet donors separate from monthly donors. So if I have, we made 48,000 at the banquet, like 44,000 a month. If I divide it all out, I want to know that 4,000 a month which is separate from the people who don't go to the bank, who are just my normal monthly donors that I know are always going to be there. Maybe that's another $3,000 a month, whatever. This, right now, with the way it's set up, it all just falls into other gifts. So what I do is I run a giving report. And you can make this as complicated as you want, but I run a giving report, and then I will enter a column in that thing, and I will code everything. Banquet, with a B, monthly donors, and so on. That helps me just project out. I know I'm going to have 3,000 every month, and I will then also look at one-time gift. If all of a sudden one donor writes a $5,000 check, I don't want that showing up in my monthly donors, because I want to keep track of monthly donors that I just know are going to be good forever, are good for the whole year, whatever. So then I will, code it as a one-time, and then I sort it, and then I go into this 18,920, and I will then distribute that number. Now, if you look on this screen, you can't tell so well, but I just double-checked it this morning. Well, yeah, you can see it. You can see all these lines are a little bit grayer here, as opposed to these lines right here. You see that?
Yes.
So I can take that 18,9. So for all past months, or anything in this whole cash flow, if it's a white cell, no gray background, you can change it. So what I'm going to do, and I don't know if this is going to let me, but let's say of that 18,920, 5,000 was for the banquet, and it won't let me enter it. Let's see.
Yeah, well.
Okay, there it is, 5,000. Okay, now see the 18,920 stays there, but now I have this unassigned amount. So just play with me for a little bit. I'm going to go and say there was, where did I go here? Sorry about that. I get back to where was it? Okay, right there. Okay, I want just to make it $4,000 there, and then I'm going to put 9920 in that amount. And now I have taken this 18,920 and I put it into other buckets, because other gifts, what does that tell me? So now I'm going to zero that out, because I've distributed the whole thing, and watch this red 18,920 go away. See, that all went away. So now I have that 18,920 in the buckets where I want to watch it. And so that's what I do every month. So you can do some areas, just leave it. They just leave that in other gifts all the way through. But if you have multiple events, or another area, if you have multiple staff and certain staff are responsible for bringing in X number of dollars, somehow you've got to be able to track that. So, I track that on a separate spreadsheet, and then I would add a separate line in this contribution here, or keep it tracked on a separate spreadsheet. But when I say this doesn't do everything you want, when you're multiple staff or multiple events, and then you want to track them, then it just throws all that amounts in this other gifts. So at the end of the day, I'd like to know how much I made from golf versus monthly donors and so on. So I'm not going to hammer that point, but does that kind of make sense what I'm talking about?
Yeah, this is Rob. It makes sense to me. I guess I need to go back a couple steps just from a first exposure to this, and I've seen accounting systems before. So, but I'm even back to, where am I going to get the report that says where those donors, what category they came in at, and I'm assuming somebody else has entered them into the other gifts line item for us. So now how do I don't know where I'm getting the reports from to back it out and spread it amongst categories.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Lily.
The bottom left-hand side, you see that view reports? That's an area that allows you to, as you click on the different categories, do like a trial balance of an account for a certain month. And that's how you can print all the detail information out.
Okay. Because I'm assuming all of the payments are going to some other post office box somewhere and it's getting posted globally, or is it going to come into the one we have here in Walla Walla for our Young Life group? And I need to get with Shane to get the key for it and collect things.
Well, that's a really good question. It can do both of those things happen, where some people are already sending to the service center national office, and then it's distributed to your account for Blue Mountain. But there are some that send it directly to the area, and then the area sends it to the service center. So it is both.
All credit card payments will go automatically to Colorado.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so on there, you would say, I want this going to my operating, the operating account or the campership account, whatever. But if it's through the operating account, all those contributions just default to this line right here.
Okay. So in Colorado, they're coding those to this line, and then we have to go spread them out if it was a credit card payment to some event that we would have received.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
That's a little bit of a weakness in the system where, sometimes we don't know, if you look at this little button right here, it's going to bring up who all your donors were for there. Now, I'll close that, but as a volunteer, I don't know, we had a contribution into, we are WA28. If anybody wants to know, make a contribution. But we are WA28. We had some guy from Wisconsin with a Wisconsin address, our donor account one time, and so WI28 got messed up with a WA28. So it's important, especially for the larger gifts, to make sure, you let Colorado know if something's in your account that shouldn't be, and then trust that other areas doing the same. A weakness that I think is that I don't know what's getting miscoded to another area. That's why I track our donors on a separate. I look at that every month to see, hey, all of a sudden some guy gave $200 every month, and all of a sudden he quit. What happened? Maybe somehow what happens is he gets a receipt, and it tells him on the receipt where his money went. But if he doesn't look at it and it all of a sudden went to the wrong area, when he does the next one, it just keeps going like that. So it's important to kind of get to know your donors a little bit. Now, sure. I say that sounding negative. I don't think it's a big problem. It has happened very, very rarely. I think I'm surprised how little it happens, but I think it's important to get to know who your donors and their giving habits. Sometimes a credit card expires and no one's watching it. They're supposed to contact the area, but I don't know that they always do. So also you have we had a guy giving $400 a month, and also he quit. Well, the credit card ran out, and 4 months later, it's hard to get him to reissue a thing for $1,600 to make it all up. Okay, now I said, okay, time-wise, okay. What I want to do is talk about a couple things. One thing Colorado does that I think is very good is when you look at the way this gets populated, you have a column here called approved budgets, your 17 budgets. Ignore those first two columns. In your 18 proposed budget, here's the final approved budget, this column right here. And what happens is and when this thing first started, they would populate that column, but it was up to you to go fill in all the other boxes, spread it out over 12 months. What happens now is that, I'm going to move around here a little bit, but I'll just grab a number down here somewhere called, let's try program. That 2748 gets spread evenly over all 12 months, okay? And for 2748, not a big deal. So you can see then, when October comes, these become actual numbers, so the projected changes to actual. But you can see now these months over here, they're all the same. See that? Now 2748, that doesn't divide by, I'm not sure if something changed for those guys, but here's another number, operating expenses 200. They're the same every month. Now, most most things on the cash flow, so they pre-populate this thing for you. Most things, it's probably appropriate. So if you have a guy on salary, it's probably appropriate that these numbers are all the same over all months. Where you've got to be careful, though, is if you have an event like a golf tournament, and you're projecting $20,000, and they start spreading that in October. See, in this one, he did go in and enter it, and this thing is jumping around too fast on me. Okay, let's go back over here. So he put 5,000 right there, and then he put 7,500 over these 2 months right here. So somehow they're doing golf. Looks like at least on 2 separate occasions. Maybe this is going to flop over into both months, but or your banquet. You have your banquet once. It'd be nice to have it every month, I guess, but generally you have it one time. So if you had where I've seen areas get in trouble is if your total revenues exceed expenses for the year, that's what you want. But if you're heavily weighted towards your major fundraisers late in the year, that means you could potentially have red months early on in the year. So when you have those items that are going to be one time or that aren't evenly spread, that's why we'll often ask you to update your cash flow, because things get out of whack. When you see a banquet bringing in X, big dollars every month or whatever. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's important to update it for that. The other thing is, to take it out of your, another reason to update it is when you know something is not going to happen, you want to go in and change it. Now, I'm gonna jump around here a little bit. If you look all the way at the bottom of March projected, you can see they are projected to end March at 59.87. These are the 2 best numbers you really got to look at, in my opinion. The ending cash balance, that's the ending number every month, and your estimated cash month. So that's a half month. Cash months, just as a little background, is you take your total budget divided by 12. That's what they call cash months. So their total budget divided by 12 right here is 12,075. This 59.87 right there is rounded to 0.5, I guess.
Yeah,
I haven't done the math.
that's
pretty close. So they're going to end positive cash. Then you go all the way over, and you can see, okay, now they're going to be at 18,000, 20,000, 22, 34. Wow, they're going to end up at $53,000 here, 4.47. I would say that's a very, very healthy number, okay? However, my understanding of this area is, where are we at? My understanding, see, this is a number you can change. It's not highlighted in gray here. My understanding, this banquet is not going to happen. Now, maybe it happens, but I'm going to assume it doesn't happen. They thought it would, but now it's not going to. I'm going to just change that to a 0. See the very bottom now changed to a negative 0.33? And the budget also projected 10,000 in April. I think the plan was 10,000 comes in each of those months. Now, maybe that happens still. I'm not sure, but let's assume it doesn't. And
it's not going to happen.
Okay, so I'm going to take those out. I'm just going to update this. This is what we would ask you to do, is update it. Now you can see where they ended the year at 4.47. Now they're down to 2.8. So a huge difference. And then, as I was looking at this thing, they've got a one-time gift here. Now, maybe that's good or not. I don't know. That's in July. But let's say something comes up and all of a sudden that isn't going to happen. Let's just take it out. I've saved these numbers as a backup, so I can go back and fix this all. So just hear me out here. So I'm going to zero that one out. I know that isn't going to happen. And then this golf tournament, okay, we were a little bit, I messed up. I entered this twice. I should have only entered it once. I'll take that out. So now what started at 4.47 is 1.3. So the reason this is important is 2 things. Cash flows every area is kind of measured on a monthly basis. So when an area goes into deficit, there's a policy that deals with deficits. And I'm not going to get into the deficit policy, but it's important to know your cash position on a monthly basis. Jeff Huber is accountable to Colorado for his areas, and his areas in deficit. And so that's the reason why it's important to him. It's important to your area. Areas that are constantly struggling with deficits and have to have their staff and so on trying to raise money, it just takes away from ministry. So it's important to measure this. Now, and I'll also say another thing is Jeff and Lily and I, we look at these things every month, and the best way you can appease us is plug in a bunch of black numbers, and we're going to ignore it, because if there's a lot of cash available, hey, we're not going to pay a lot of attention. But what happens is when that doesn't come to reality, and all of a sudden that shock comes, that you plugged in $20,000 for that banquet here, but it isn't going to happen. Then you got to scramble and find that cash. So it's important to keep this thing as updated and as current as possible. Now, you don't have to update every $200 thing, but when you have a $10,000 thing number in there, those are the types of things that really need to be updated and watched pretty closely, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense? So yeah, you update it to take care of that, the even spreads. The things always change. All of a sudden a big donor moves out of the area or is going to quit donating, or a new donor comes on. Then you want to update it for that. And then, in my opinion, and I'll show you in a minute how to download this thing, but I hear once in a while, what do you give at a committee meeting? What kind of a financial report? To me, this is the report. You download this, and it's a little bit ugly when you download it. Maybe it takes a little bit of cleanup, but get your committee, show them this report, and if you've updated it, they come to trust it. And believe me, most of the people on your committee are not going to understand this thing, don't want to understand it. What I do in our committee meeting is I will go to, let's see. So when we do the meeting in April for March, at that point, this will be an actual column, or what we did in February. I jumped around too much of this thing. Okay, so in February, this is the number I show them. Hey, we are negative right now in February. That's what I point to them, and then I will point them to the ending where we're projected to be at the end of the year. So, in this area, if that 4.47 that I looked at earlier was accurate, hey, that's great news. Then we just got to deal with this early on stuff. But when all these things are negative all the way here, hey, we have a problem. But that's really all. I give them this report, and some of the people who like to study this finances a little more can look at it and raise questions. I point them to that number and the ending number. And then if there's anything in here, these 7,500 that you have key assumptions on, I might point those out. But I just try to keep this updated as best that I know how. At a committee meeting, it's that number and the last number, and that's really all they want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, something else we'll look at is if we were to go to the earlier months, the October, November, and December, I noticed that the monthly revenue appears to be, instead of a large influx of probably a one-time donation, about a $3,000 to $4,000 amount on a monthly basis. So as those monthly donations, or as you go further into the months on the forecast, it looks like the area is at, forecasting $8,000 a month. So that would be a number that would need to be adjusted as well, based upon what the true donations are on a monthly basis for this area, at least. To see now how in March the forecast is for 8,500.
Yeah, good point. see, January actuals were about all revenue about 4,600, and then 3,300. They projected 8,500, but through March, which is pretty much over, pretty well over, less than 4,000. So that would seem their projections are a little bit optimistic. So you've got 8,500 all the way to the end, and then they got the golf tournament coming right at the end. Okay, I got to get these people out of the way. Then I can scroll over. That's my problem. Okay.
All your video.
All you people were in the way there. Okay. Does that make sense? So, you know, those 8,500 may be right, but if I'm looking at this thing, if I'm going to be reviewing this cash flow, I am going to notice that, boy, they went 46, 33, 36. Now they're projecting 8,500. Why? Because if that number is too high, that is going to change this number down here dramatically.
Right. Yeah, so it's important to note, we'll also look at trends at the regional level. We'll notice what has come in monthly and then what's projected and go, that doesn't quite look realistic. And therefore, we'll connect with areas and just ask them to update what they know their monthly commitments are.
Is fiscal year in September, looks like on this?
Yes, fiscal year, it's October 1 to September 9th, September 30th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and then I'm assuming, based on what I've been hearing, it sounds like, you know, if you have a situation where you're bringing in, you know, that 4,600 a month or whatever, and then you had a, you know, $1,000 a month donor drop off, the expectation would be that we're going in, updating all those future projected revenues or monthly donors for the rest of the year, and that's going to give us a better financial picture. Yeah,
you know, I think if you've got $1,000 a month changes, that's significant enough that you know, from here to the end of the year, that's another $6,000 total, which is a significant number. It impacts when your cash one cash month is 12,000. That's a significant number. That's a half a cash month. You know, if all of a sudden you're going to spend, oh yeah, we underestimate our phone bill by $25 a month. I mean, I guess everybody has their own definition of, you know, what's material. I don't really care. That's not a big enough thing to spend a whole lot of time updating this thing on. But, you know, anything that's going to move the needle, so to speak, that is significant to the bottom line here, I think you want to take a look at. Usually those numbers are in the revenue section. You can, okay, so that's kind of the cash flow. I think the extra work comes in dealing with contributions and getting them in the right box. And for everybody, you know, for some, everybody's different on the level of detail they want there. Then if you go to, and I don't know, driving this thing, you can export this whole thing to Excel. And I'm not going to export it now, but you can export this to Excel, and then you can, you know, get rid of all your zeros, your duplicate lines, whatever, if you want to clean it up a little bit. But if you, let's see, I'll just show you what the first screen. So what you can get, this is the boxes that would show up, the columns that would show up. So you would leave your account description, the 17 budget, you know, last year's, I would take it out of there. I would take it out of there. And then proposed budget, I would take it out of there. Here's your real budget. Then October actuals, November actuals, December actual. You know, it's got all these March projected and March actuals. They're both in there right now. And then you just hit OK, and I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm going to try it. Open with Excel. I'll just try it. Okay, see, it comes out pretty messy. So you want to, you know, it comes out usually a little better than this, because these things should be indented, I think. But you can see all these zeros here. You want to get rid of the zeros and so on. And then, you know, all those things that roll up, you know, like salaries, when I do ours, I would hide those rows. Otherwise, this report just gets a big this page full of numbers and people get overwhelmed by it. So hide those columns, the rows. Anything with zeros, I hide them. So it's just to make the report a little better. But then at the committee meeting, again, I show them whichever March column was, that number and that number. And this is my financial report for the committee meeting. And then I would probably say, hey, I'm projecting a 7,500 for the golf, but here's my 4,600 a month from my regular donors, and this column here was my other gifts. So I don't know what those others, because the total looked like 85 was a bit too high. It almost looks like he's duplicated. Maybe not. I don't know.
And I think it's important to note here that the formulas do not come along with the download. So if you were to download it to Excel and change those 8510s, let's say, to the appropriate number, it would not then adjust all the rest. So be sure to have those numbers changed in the cash flow before the download.
Okay, Lily, what do I close out here so I don't lose everything?
Yeah, you're fine. You can just click on the X right there. Or pardon me, that top left red dot. Yeah, hover over that. I think I can take control. Let me take control and I'll close it.
Okay. Well, what I just wanted to show them yet the okay, before we get to this, I wanted to show the I'm brain dead here. Oh, okay, what I want to show you also, the service charge. So let's say, because someone asked about real time, as soon as you enter something, so let's just change, okay, so here's your service charge. I'm going to go to this month right here, July. There's your two service charges, the one that goes to national and the one that goes to regional. So 731 and 346, okay? I'm just going to take this number out and then watch what happens to those two numbers. See, they changed? So this thing is all real time, and if you change a number, that service charge automatically changes. So when you change a number, everything will change accordingly. So it never used to be that way. If you made a change, I think in the early days of this cash flow, the service charge, then you had to go try and recompute that. And so I think they've done a pretty good job with this thing. It's a little bit cumbersome as a report. If you're used to working with accounting systems, yeah, it's a little bit, but the theory is every month, you know, the revenues, you start with, the way this works is you start with, like right here, you have $323 at the end of that month, then you add your revenues and your expenses, and now you have $24.92. See, your revenue less expense, so your net for that month was $21.68. So that number plus this number equal that number. So it's all updated all the way to the end.
I do have to, if you go back to the service charge when you're looking at, well, especially at the March, you're right there. We can see it, the projected and the actual. Notice how there are zeros in the actual at this point, and that is because service charges do not incur until the end of the month. So that's one thing that isn't necessarily real time when you're speaking of actual. That is only computed at the end of the month. So when you're looking at your actual figures mid-month and you think, oh, we're looking okay actual, understand that the service charges are not involved in that until the end. So some people forget that. And I mean, right here, that would add another $1,000 to the actual.
Yeah, good point.
All right.
March.
Really quick. What's a service charge and what does it do? And why do we pay it? Sorry, rookie questions.
Nope, great question.
No, service charge is for all the services that the service center provides for us: insurance, accounting services, tracking all this stuff.
It's your tithing.
Tithing. Well, yeah, I don't know if it's called tithing, I guess.
Right. It includes liability insurance, lots of different things that as a small business, anyone would have to manage themselves. And if, you own a business, that taxes are can be anywhere between 20 and 30%. So this is kind of where that comes from, so that you don't have to manage all of the insurance and the payroll and the income processing and all the other accounts.
Now, someone made a rookie comment, a sentence referred to themselves as a rookie. Starting next October, the service charge is changing, though. Right now, it's based upon expenses. So when I changed that 104, these numbers changed. Starting in October, they're going to change it where the service charge is now is going to be a function of revenues, contributions. So this will tweak a little bit. I'm assuming beginning of October, in October you can change this 104 and nothing will happen down with the service charge. But then when you make a change up here in contributions, then it'll change. The theory is, way they're looking at this is supposed to be a net zero effect, but some areas, most of our areas will actually be a little better off the way this is done.
Do you know what the percentage of revenue is?
The percentage is, it's
17% of revenue. That's what it will be.
17% of revenues. It's really on expenses now. It's the effective rate is 17%. However, the real rate, when I look at it, it's what 20.5%. You take 20.5% of your expenses, that becomes your service charge. Oh, this is going to be a math nerd. You're going to think I'm a real nerd now. For those of you who don't know me, I am. But then that service charge as a percentage of all expenses with the service charge included is 17%. Okay, I'm sorry. I should never have gone there. That would just confuse things. But it's about a 17% rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm up to speed.
Okay, Lily, it's 6 o'clock. Do you want to just show? I don't want to hang. Are there any questions on this? And like I said, if you have other questions, this has been pretty high level, pretty quick. If you've got any other questions, either feel free to give me a call or ask them now if you want. But for time's sake, I was going to just have Lily show what we look at every month.
Okay. No, that was a good overview. I think I'm good on my end.
Yeah, this is helpful. Now I just need to, like say, meet with local folks and walk through entries and getting passwords and whatnot connected to the work.
One comment when I first got involved is it was all about the income statement, and it was like, see, we were front loaded with our banquet early in the year, and so I remember a first committee meeting I went to is, and I'm an accounting nerd, so that's my background. But the guy who gave the report, well, he was our area director, great guy, but doesn't have a clue about finances. His report started out like, we had a lot of money and now we don't have any, and I don't know how come. And that was basically the report. But we had our banquet in the fall. We had our banquet in the fall. We had our fair in the fall. So we were flush with cash, October, November, all the way till spring. But then we had nothing from spring to the end of the year. And so every month, all of a sudden, all that cash that you had just goes away. And the income statement doesn't project that out. So this thing kind of makes you look at what's the cash ramifications of all this. So I think it's a handy way of looking at it.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to share with Rob and Ryan, you had talked about passwords. We're able to help you with that. So as a region, we'll send you the information. If you don't have access, we'll get you access. And then upon that access, it'll request that you enter your own password. So we'll make sure to get that access for you.
Yeah, I think
great. Thank you.
Lily, do you want to just show, were you going to show them what we look at every month?
Yeah, I'll also say just a few other things. Budget season is coming here soon. It's in May. So it'll be very much what you see here, but it'll be for the next year. So when we start saying, hey, we'd love you to look at your budget for next year and forecast, it's simply meaning go to 2018 and 19 and start plugging in the numbers. And the good thing with the budget, see, this is the proposed, and then he said proposed and then approved. This is what you're going to put in, and then it comes back to the region, and then we may massage or not get it back to you, and then the stamp of approval will be in August. So it starts in May, the budget for the next fiscal year, and it is confirmed in August. And it's simply the cash flow, like Ken had said. And once you put a number in here, it translates, divides out by 12, and then you can go ahead and manage those numbers separately, just making sure, such as a banquet, putting it in the correct month instead of divided amongst 12. Just making sure that this number equals this number, the projected. When you start playing with numbers in the middle, you just want to make sure they balance one another with one another. So that's budget. And
Okay, Lily, stay there for a second. I had one more thing I just thought of.
okay.
Okay, one thing I saw recently is an area had a banquet. I think let's just say in March, and you know when you do your banquet, you add up you get together the next day, you add all your cash and pledges, and let's just say the banquet with cash and pledges was $80,000. On the cash flow, they had entered $80,000 for the banquet in March. You go back, okay. From excuse me, for March, they had entered $80,000 up in this banquet, wherever March is, right here. Not this area, but this, just remember, this is cash. This is not pledges. So the 80,000 totally distorted their cash flow. Does that make sense? It's always important. This is cash, not pledges. So, just because you got 60,000 of the 80 was pledges, you would have only entered 20, let's say.
Right. It's the actual cash that came in from the banquet, not what people said they would give in months to come.
So you would account for that extra $60,000 in pledges in your hypothetical situation you're talking about there in the months to follow.
Yes.
That's the way I would do it. Yep. And then that's when I track it, is how many of those. That's why I track banquet and monthly donors separately, because I want to see of those remaining 60 at 5,000 a month, or approximately, how much, did we get 7,000 or did we get 4,000? How are they giving? And so that's why I like to track them separately from monthly donors. When you commingle it all, you don't really see how did the banquet people really do.
Yeah.
It's a little extra work, and clearly it's extra work, because then you need to track your banquet list, and I do that on Excel separately from this, but then I break it out on here. I'll take that other assigned like I did over here and break some into banquet and some into monthly. Whatever works best for you.
And something that I have done numerous times in the past, because I've been in a multi-staff area before becoming regional director here, on some of the lines, when we'd have a staff person's line, like right now it has RTD contributions, but let's say that was, what's the gentleman at Garfield Palouse? Well, there's Mark Sawyer and somebody else, but let's say that they're supposed to bring in, $500 a month, but for the first few months, they only brought in 100. So all that other money just kind of disappears. So what I do is I add that in September, the last fiscal year or fiscal month. I just say, well, you're $400 short those first 4 months. We're going to add $1,600 to September just to show you still need to raise that. That's a trick that I've done, just so if they didn't raise it, it still needs to show up. We need to recognize that you were short that month of the part you needed to raise for personal support or whatever. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I don't know if Ken, if you would do that or not, but that's what I did.
Oh, if you do it, Jeff, I sure would like to.
And what will happen there, Jeff, is sometimes that'll balloon your budget if in fact they're unable to raise that money that they've committed to, but it just hasn't come to fruition. So sometimes that can hurt you depending on the amount.
Yeah, but if we put it off to the end, it doesn't disappear, and we say you still need to raise that. And if this is not going to be raised, we either need to make a plan, or we need to decrease your salary, or we need to transition out. If this isn't raised, that's when we moved it ahead, and just to show this is still going to need to be raised. It's not gone.
Right. Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Okay, Lily, go and show them the other. I don't want to keep them over.
Okay. Just this, we want to show you this because, and you might need to see this a little bit better, but this is letting you see what we as a region look at. So this is a previous year. You'll see this is 2015-16, this is 2016-17, and then there's 2017-18. And Ken creates this report every month and highlights that which we find to be questionable, and as well we'll look at trends. So you'll see here last May, let's say, 6,000 came in revenue. In 16-17, it went to 7,000. And then we're looking at the 8,000 in 2017-18. And I think Ken.
Lily, I'm not tracking you. I'm not seeing you move the air. Are you doing this?
Nope, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to. Let me see if I can.
Where should I be looking?
Okay, don't move your mouse for a second, Ken. I'm gonna delete. I'm gonna stop waiting.
Why don't you take charge? Go ahead, you take charge again.
Okay.
I feel like mommy and daddy are fighting.
Yeah, don't touch your computer there, Ken. I'm not quite sure how to turn yours off. But do know that we look at those things. So when we see this 8,500 all the way across, we're going to question it sometimes because of a trend and wonder, did you really get $2,000 more in commitments? We'll look at the cash months. We'll see how that's trending. We see that that's trending up, but we're also going to question that revenue. Just something that we will look at on a monthly basis as a region. So we're constantly trying to help and guide people along. So if we see those highlights, that's when both Jeff and I start getting on the phone, and we'll give you a call and just say, hey, can we help you out with this? We see a trend in this direction. Can you give us more detail? Things like that. So we try to
One thing we do here is there's only 4 lines for each year. So we just take your operating revenue, your operating expense, and then the last 2 lines on that cash flow, and that's all we look at. So we're not getting into the details of your cash flow. We're trusting that all the numbers have rolled up to these, that you're doing that. So we just look at the high level stuff. So the ending results.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, it is 6:08 according to my timeline, and I thank everyone for being on this call. If you have further questions, we are happy to answer them. So I'll be sure to, on some follow-up information, provide both my cell number and Ken, do you mind if I give them your number?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah. So that if you need assistance while you're accessing and getting into the information, we're here for you. So if there's not any more questions, we'll say goodbye. Jeff, did you have any last words? Just want to make sure we're.
Yeah, just that I know Rob, I think he's off the call because he had
I stayed on actually. My other appointment got canceled, so I'm good.
I was going to say, we were that interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
My wife thinks I'm on a date with her right now, but I'm still on the audio. No. But I was thinking for Rob and for Ryan, we wanted to be really clear on this. This was an introductory, but we want to make ourselves available to you for a follow-up, just as you learn a little bit more that you might have some questions. So we wanted to make that clear to you. We didn't want to make it clear to everybody else on the call. No, I'm just kidding. But specifically for you guys. We will work on getting you access to cash flow and some of these online tools? Because right now I'm guessing you don't have that. Is that correct?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
Cash flow.
Okay, you do have access. Great. So
Gary,
Rob, I think you probably don't Rob, you probably don't even have a Young Life online account, I'm guessing, because you are pretty new to the scene. So
Yeah.
we'll follow up with you and get you set up and get you permission and all that. But it might cost you a urine analysis and maybe a background check.
Well, I know they
One
charge
of those
my
things.
credit card every month, so they do that part for me. So
Yeah, that's the easy part.
Mhm.
So
All right.
anyways, I'm thankful you guys are on, and just know that we're not expecting that you guys are experts now, but at least you have enough information to start to form questions. So I think, as Ken and Lily and I just described, both of your areas have not been viewed by anyone besides the area director in the past. So we're glad that there are more people that will have eyes on this. I know Mike Tacheny in Blue Mountain wanted to listen to the recording of this training so he can learn as well. But it's nice when a couple people know how to read this. And now we hope the reports at committee meetings are more than, on the scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, we're kind of about a 3. Or if they start using rainbow colors to describe how the budget is, it's not really helpful. It's nice to look at some numbers. So you guys are now able to do that. Well, you will be at least.
and Jeff, just so you know, I'm gonna probably get with Mike and Shane and go over this as well, so Shane can do some handoff and Mike and I can be on the same page with it. So
Good. And I think you're onto something about the keys to the mailbox. It's a good point.
yeah, hopefully
Could be a
somebody's
big-
checked lately because I have no idea.
That
Yeah.
was great. And we just want to say to close, thank you very much for your willingness to jump in on this. It's all volunteer, and we understand that, and it is of extreme value. So thank you for being willing.
Sure,
Okay.
appreciate it. Thanks for your time tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thank you very much. We'll let you all go. Thank you, Ken. We really appreciate it. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you too. Bye.
Bye.